It being 3 o'clock, I'm calling the meeting to order. Stand for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, in roll call, I have Commissioner Purvis, Commissioner Cowan, Commissioner Brittenfield,
Here.
Chair Rhea,
Here.
Vice Chair Sand, Commissioner Carell,
Here.
Commissioner Hamlin,
Here.
you all present.
The minutes, do I have a motion to approve as submitted?
Approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Chair Ray, if I may interrupt, if you folks can just make sure you use your microphones, it'll help the record. Thank you.
All right, written communications. I see none. Oral communications, anyone wishing to speak? Public hearings, none. So we'll move right on to H1, current business, the Grape Day Park restrooms.
Good evening, or I guess it's afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I said good morning when I showed up, so. Adam Feinstone, Principal Planner here. We've got several items on the agenda. The first here is the proposed Grape Day Park restroom building. We've been working with Joseph Marks, architect, who's actually here for any questions that we may have on preliminary designs for a new restroom facility in Grape Day Park. The existing restroom, it can't quite be seen on here. It's a little bit off the screen, but it's up in the northeastern corner of the site. That's become quite a crime magnet and an issue for police department over the last number of years. So the city has been working in conjunction with basically engineering, public works, parks, and police department, in addition to planning, have been working to look for a new location and a new design for a proposed building to replace the existing restrooms. At this point, we have looked at several different locations. The first was potentially to put it back in the location where the existing restroom was at. At this point, based on input from the police department, that was determined to be a problem, proximity to where it currently is, and the criminal element, I should say, that's over in that area can create the same problems that we've been having today. Second, we looked at a location where the former Lime Street School was, and due to the historic nature of that site and the building that had previously been there, we opted to not go in that location. And finally, the third location that we really gave some heavy consideration to is where you see on the screen here along Palm Walk. This, real quickly, this kind of gray line here, that's the ultimate desire for some changes to the alignment on the walk. But for the time being, Palm Walk is, as you know, up here. So the idea was to place the restroom in a central location where it's easily accessible, but yet still out of the way, not blocking any views through the green or kind of getting in the way of any of the semi-active recreational areas and open space. So that location has been selected and vetted through the police department, through planning, engineering, building, actually not building yet, planning, engineering, Parks and Recs, and the city manager's office, and we are looking at moving forward on that location. We wanted to present the architecture and proposed design to the commission at this point and look at that for any design issues and get some input and conduct design review. So as we move into this here, this is the proposed floor plan for this structure. I'm not going to go into too much detail of the plans you've seen, and basically what we've got is an increase from 5 to 10 stalls and a design that's got more or less 2 parallel buildings with an arched or a U-shaped planter area. some perspectives on there. It's got some really cool artistic treatment, grapevines, more or less on the sides here, and then more elevations here. The sides here, the open areas, they will be able to be closed off at night. These, I believe, and we can have the architect here correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these are the gates that will kind of accordion closed there to keep it safe at night and not have any transient issues. It's got a little opening at the bottom of each of the stalls here that you can see, so that we can see if, or that police department can see if there's people in there more than one set of feet and one of them not looking like a little kid, you know, or maybe that is an issue too, depending on, hopefully it's apparent. And so just wanted to show these and to get some input and feedback from the commission. Both myself and Joseph Marks are available here to answer any questions that the commission may have or take any input.
Okay, go ahead.
I just have one question about the doors that will close over at night. Knowing that this is going to be a very attractive nuisance for homeless, they're going to be substantial metal.
Yeah, we've worked with the police department on that, and I believe, and Joe, if you can correct me, the gates here, I don't know that I'm not sure if they're shown completely accurately or if they're supposed to go all the way up to the top of the trellis there. Is that accurate that they're supposed to go all the way up?
Yeah, they're
You mind coming up to the mic? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Mark. I'm the architect for the project. The gates are intended to go all the way up to the full height of the building. Currently, they're designed as a chevron shape to mirror some of the elements that are on the City Hall building, and they would be made out of steel. Powder-coated steel. So I think they're relatively difficult to vandalize.
I like the shape, I really do. I think that continuity with City Hall makes it look intentional.
Chairman Ray, I have a question for staff. Are we still needing to identify ourselves for recording?
Please, if you can.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I have a couple. One of them is, unfortunately, I couldn't think of a better location for this building, but I do remember those old days when I was a mom, and it is fairly distant from the children's playground. And I feel bad for the moms who are going to be dragging a panicking child all that distance. But like I said, I can't think of a better location, and thank you for not placing it where the school was. My other question, and I'm sorry we have to think in those terms these days, is I'm glad that the doors are raised so that the police can look underneath, but I know there are some not pleasant people out there who like to shove a cell phone under a door. Again, I don't have a solution for that one.
Yeah, Adam Feinstein, again, principal planner. From staff's perspective, we look at everything we can do to deal with these attractive nuisances, so to say. Crime prevention through environmental design is the kind of way that this is termed, and designing something that would help deter. But it is tough to meet all of the goals where you can have that visibility so that the police department can see in there, but yet also provide that ability to block it. I don't know that there's any other opportunities. I'm not sure if Joe can suggest anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've studied quite a few of the public restrooms that attempt to do similar things and control crime through the design of facilities. And unfortunately, there are some compromises that need to be made, and we believe this is an adequate compromise.
Okay.
Commissioner Purvis, please.
Hi. I like the chevron design for the gates, but I was wondering if it was an accordion style and whether that would act as a ladder.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. I like the chevron design for the security gates, but it looks like it's an accordion style. I
Yes.
was wondering if that would act as a ladder when closed, or when open, actually. No, when it's closed. I don't know what it is, but when it's sealed, when it's securing the building.
I'm sorry, yes, it's an accordion design, and what's the question?
Do you think that will act as a ladder for somebody who wants to climb it, who is intent on getting on the roof?
I think it'll be difficult with chevron but we have a lot of athletic people, and they could scale most anything. It's, the design isn't finalized. We were trying to create something that would be very sympathetic to the city hall buildings and all that. So we at this point, we suggested aesthetics over some of the other concerns, but it would be quite a hike, and then you'd have to get up and over the top of the railing, and in between a fairly small space to get actually into the place. But unfortunately, almost anything can be scaled.
And then one other comment more so, is there going to be some type of camera or anything kind of facing in that direction? Because it's when the bathrooms are up closer to the street, that whole eyes on the street type of movement. How is this going to differ since it's so set back into the park?
Well, there will be cameras, and the park is going to be undergoing a lighting and new camera study, which my firm is going to be involved with as well. So there will be camera surveillance over this area, and we're hoping that it's able to enhance the police department's ability to control the park in a reasonable way.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cowan here.
I noticed that a lot of the talk of our group here has to do with security and appropriateness for the homeless situation. My feeling is our job here is to look at the structure in the context of the historic properties of the park and the buildings around there. And I am uncertain myself about what reference this makes to the history of the park and the existing buildings. And I'd like to ask the architect, where in the architecture existing there, did you take your keys from or your inspiration from, or is this kind of unto itself?
Well, the guidance for the project comes from a number of locations. Of course, the police department and the crime prevention through environmental design is a major criteria for it. It also sits in the park, and we understand the historical nature of it. And what we tried to do with the building is create a very low maintenance, easy to maintain, easy to control structure that characteristically favor the performing arts end of the city hall, as opposed to some of the more vintage buildings in the park. But our goal was to create 4 of those panels that you see are essentially going to be concrete tilt-up reliefs with themes from Grave Park, graves, and themes from the activities in the park historically. And so that's our nod to the history of the park within this very utilitarian type structure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ray again. So the mural panels could be reflective of Escondido history, and I would especially request input from the Escondido History Center as far as that design goes. If I don't know if it's already been determined. Okay, great.
No, the 4 panels are conceptual at this point, and it would be terrific if we had input from others involved in the history of Escondido or Grave Park to present themes. These would be essentially form liners created. We talked to a couple of companies who do this along the freeway. You've seen concrete panels that are heavily embossed with a theme, and there are a couple of local Southern California companies that create these form liners so that you can pour your concrete panels and have a relief created in really pretty substantial detail. Hadn't given it any consideration. Well, hadn't really thought about whether it should be painted or not, but unfortunately with graffiti being an issue, that may be counterproductive. But initially we saw them as reliefs with a coating on them to resist graffiti. And that's where we are with the concept now. We'd love it if we put on the actual images, and we would have four opportunities, either for the same image to be repeated 4 times or 4 different images.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we're looking for a recommendation to City Council.
Correct.
And so do I have a motion coming forth from that?
Commissioner Correll, I move to approve the plans as submitted.
Do I have
Span, I second.
all those in favor? Opposed? Yeah. One opposed? Oh. Ooh.
Span.
You guys, Mark, if you can.
What was the question?
I just wanted to confirm your no. I was having it.
Yeah, I am voting no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, H2, design review for a residential addition at 255 South Jennifer Street.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry.
There we go. Paul Bingham, Assistant Planner. This is an item that actually came before the Historic Preservation Commission back in November for 1055 South Juniper Street. And one of the owners, Susanna Barajas, is in the audience here. They have a small clapboard cottage that was built circa 1920. And they would like to do an addition. In November, we had a Plan A and a Plan B. Plan A was to add on to the side of the house, which, if you could go back to that slide that I had up, okay? If you look at this 1989 photo, it would have been here on the left side of the house, a rather large addition. And then the Plan B was to enclose the patio cover at the back, and you can sort of see that at the back now in this 1989 photo. So the commission back then said that they felt that the addition on the side that would be so noticeable from the street was inappropriate, and to come back with their proposal for a rear addition only. And so you have in your packet some drawings that show the addition on the back, which is basically underneath the existing patio cover, and the elevations, one of them off the back that faces west, has a window in it, and then on the south side is a door. We're recommending approval of this with a couple of conditions. First of all, they need to hire someone to do some building plans, because they're going to have to go to the building department and have plan check run and then pull permits for the construction of this. Second of all, we'd like to see the siding and the window and the door maybe be a better match for the house. Instead of the slider, that they have there. So we can work with them and as staff between now and when they pull building permits to make those kinds of things happen. We don't need to make them wait and come back here and burden you with it. But that's the recommendation of staff. So that concludes my portion. If you have any questions for me or the applicant, we'll be happy to try and answer those.
Commissioner Purvis?
Were they asked to provide the information for this resubmittal?
This is a code case. They had already done some improvements on the back patio and were brought in by code officers.
I understood, but I recall the last, when it came before us in the past, some of the information that I particularly was interested in learning about was the proposed siding, the proposed windows.
Yeah, I think if you look in your packet on Exhibit A, they, yeah, it's up on your screen. They've provided some elevations that show a continuation of the clapboard siding. And so our only concern was the window types and the door.
So is it going to be wood clapboard, fiberglass, aluminum?
Well, the interior standards allow them to use commercially available materials as long as they're a close match. They don't have to be exact. And I think we'd be okay with that.
I know that specifically the last time it came forward, I know that was information that I personally was requesting, and I don't see that it really changed other than the drawing, this particular drawing coming in a little differently. That's just a comment I'd like to have out there.
Commissioner Ray, I'm looking at Exhibit B, and it appears there are no windows or doors in the, what's labeled the bedroom. And I don't believe that's to code, so there should be at least one more window to consider. And I'm trying to figure out what the 6x7 room is next to it, as well as the 5x6 room. Chairman Ray, it appears that there's further work that needs to be done. I don't know.
She's a Spanish speaker, so she's clarifying with me, and I'll get back to you in just a second.
Okay, I'm wondering if for the purpose of the minutes, even though you're conversing in Spanish, it should probably be recorded.
If I might, Commissioner Span, there's no permits pulled for this as yet. So it has to go before the building. So they're gonna require access window for the bedroom, emergency access. And as far as those other 2 rooms go, one is, if it's going to be a closet, it's going to have a door in the bedroom, but I feel confident that going to the building, that they're going to correct these problems. As far as the concept of building on the back, if that's what we're approving, I have no problem with that. I do have, one of my pet peeves is a roof line, so if we're going to leave it up to staff and more professional architectural drawings than this, because they're certainly not going to get a permit off of these drawings. I feel that staff has a lot of input that would mirror anything that we would say.
Okay, so Susanna has clarified with me that the drawing that you're looking at right now, that the interior walls actually aren't there, and that the elevation that you see here is correct with the window in the middle and the door on the outside. But to be very honest, it's not really our purview in the HPC to get into what sorts of rooms and things are happening inside. It's mainly the exterior that we're looking at, and that's what staff is concerned with. Is this going to be a bad addition to the house, or is it going to be something that's sympathetic? So the fact that they're doing a similar cladding on the outside, and that we're conditioning them with windows and doors that are similar to the house itself, and that all of the addition work is at the rear that can't really be seen from the street. That would be our recommendation.
Commissioner Correll, I think the thought is that they're trying to make this addition that's already there be in compliance, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to try to not make it too difficult for them to maybe be able to do this and have to reset the roof line. There's lots and lots and lots of homes in the old Escondido district that have this kind of addition to it that look beautiful. So I see no problem with it. I think it's great that they're going to get it fixed and get it in line and hopefully do those things that you want them to do.
Commissioner Price.
I don't have a problem with the location of this addition. I understand what my peer just said, and I acknowledge that, but as under the purview of the HPC, you're asking us to make a decision on the aesthetics of this rear addition without the information that we see a picture, it shows horizontal lines, it shows, I know you're saying that you're going to have to do it at a staff level, but the fact is that it came back, it's resubmitted, but it's still incomplete. So I'm not sure why either was the information, was it conveyed to the applicant? Why did staff accept it when it's incomplete, there's not the information, and why are you now doing it at the staff level? If you are asking us to make a decision based on materials, based on the form, the shape, all that, then why isn't it presented to us in that manner?
Well, it's up to you to decide whether you want to go with staff's recommendation or not. If you're not comfortable with that, you can vote no.
I understood. I'm just asking why you would accept the application from the applicant without it being specified. Normally, it's not normal, is it, that you do that?
Through the chair, Adam Feinstein again, principal planner. What I might suggest at this point, obviously the applicant is going to need to get building plans that are going to be sufficient for at least that level of detail. My suggestion and my recommendation to the commission would be to once again table this and have those plans brought back here prior to the building permits being issued. I've not been involved in this, but my guess is that it's not going to put too much of a delay on them because it's probably going to take them a little bit of time and effort to get those building plans ready. So I would suggest my recommendation would be to bring this back with the building plans with a sufficient level of detail in May.
Okay. Commissioner Ray, I would just, I want to explain why I was concerned with the interior of the building, because that would directly impact the exterior window and door arrangement. So, you know, other than that, I'm relatively accepting of this project. I'm very cautious about it, however, because 4 months ago, I mentioned at the meeting, and I know there's been a code enforcement complaint about the front yard parking. There's actually a carport, multiple, maybe 4 cars, carport that is still 4 months later, now covered in black visqueen, and an inappropriate wall that was built adjacent to it. So I think that's my concern, that this had better be a well done project. The window shown in Exhibit A looks more like a slider aluminum window, or maybe vinyl. So I think I know that's why I'm being cautious, and it does sound like a good idea to bring more complete plans before us. I don't think it'll be money wasted, because I believe we would accept a professionally drawn plan.
Okay, so I know that for them, money is very tight, and so maybe at this point, what we could ask is if the direction that they're going, if you're okay with that, they'll go ahead and have professional drawings that are to the level that they can submit for building plans to come back to you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
At least to give them some direction and comfort before they shell out the money.
Commissioner Carell, can I ask a clarifying question really quick? Is that carport and that wall part of code enforcement action?
It is not before us to,
Understood.
yeah, to look at, so they've perhaps been told to take them down.
Commissioner Span, I would move that we postpone this item until they have architectural drawings that are suitable to pull permits and review it at that time, in May, preferably.
Commissioner Purvis, I second.
All those in favor? Oh, push your appropriate button. Passed. Okay, on to item H3.
This is Commissioner Brightenfeld. I need to recuse myself from this one.
Oh,
My resident.
okay. Thank you.
Chair Ray, can you, I don't think we caught what, I'm guessing Commissioner Breitenfeld
I
is,
need to recuse myself from the next item because I live too close to the duplex in question.
great, thank you.
Okay, that's item 3, residential addition at 126, 128 West 7th Avenue.
Right, so this is a 1941 duplex that's in the old Escondido neighborhood. You may recognize this because it came to HPC back in May of 2017. Now, we don't typically allow duplexes in the old Escondido neighborhood because most of the zoning throughout the district is R16 or single family. So this is a non-conforming structure. It was built as a duplex back in 1941, and so it's considered legal and non-conforming. The photos that you see here on the screen were what we brought 2 years ago, and that was a front view of the duplex, and then because of the topography of the site, it's actually 2 stories in the back, and the lower floor that you see here in this rear view is actually just a a storeroom under each of the duplexes, and then that little building in between, that's a utility room with a water heater in it. So what was approved back 2 years ago was a request to add 2 rooms to the rear of each of these duplexes, and then some covered patios below. And so here's a section that shows the house and then those room additions on the right over the covered patio. And then here's a plan view, again showing the historic duplex unit, each of them, the little storage area behind it, and then the covered patio. And these were the plans that came through after HPC approved it, came through building, and I reviewed them. They matched what the HPC had approved, and so I signed off on them and they got their building permits. And so they began building them, and these are some photos that the applicant took while they were building underway, and you can see the second floor bedroom additions going in over these 2 covered patio areas. Okay, the problem is that code enforcement was notified and went and did a check and found out that the patios had been converted, both of them, to units. So we now had a 4-plex where the duplex was non-conforming to begin with, and so we have a code case. So the applicant has requested that he be able to retain the work that he did down below, and this is a drawing that they provided, to take out the kitchen facilities that were put in both of those converted patio areas, but leave what they're calling a rec room and a bathroom. The bathroom has a toilet and a shower and a sink in each one of them. And the storeroom behind there has also had some improvements done to it. So essentially he's asking to keep what's there but just remove the kitchen elements. So staff has looked at this, and our recommendation actually is to deny his request. That we feel that the room additions up above and the patio covers were what we approved 2 years ago and what staff recommended to approve, and that that's what they should have built. In conjunction with that, we feel that a rec room with a bathroom downstairs, a full bathroom, is not only inviting problems later, with potentially with a new owner of the structure if it sells, but it also probably exceeds the valuation limits of what the code allows for additions to non-conforming structures. And so based on those thoughts, we haven't done the calculations yet, but based on that, we're, as staff, recommending denial. But the applicant wanted this to come to HPC, and so we've made good on his request, and we brought it before you. And I don't see that he's here, so I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners? Commissioner Span?
Well, it's all comment, so I don't really have any questions. I'll go first, though. So, okay, Commissioner Span, this is just another slap in the face to the HPC where we approved something and actually stretched our limits a little bit to be sympathetic to the landowner. But we're not stupid. This is nothing but 2 more units at the bottom that will be units. I think that he needs to remove any enclosure, that it might be a covered patio but not an enclosed patio, to the point where there's nobody who's going to be sleeping down there. the bathroom facilities come out, it go back to exactly what we told them in the first place, and that there be a deed restriction that they are never going to be turned into units downstairs. That's my recommendation. And that would be in line with the city, that is to deny his request.
Commissioner Correll?
I don't have anything additional to say. I really, I feel the same way. He's going to put people in there. So the bathrooms were never inspected. He put all those in there outside of the permit. It shouldn't be there.
Commissioner Purvis?
I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses, so I can't see my paperwork. Hard copy. Could you go back to the drawings that were approved?
Okay, so this is a site plan that shows what essentially was a square existing historic duplex, and then we allowed them to add rooms to the right of that, where it says approved room additions. And then here's a section that shows what the extent of that was. Again, the historic building there center and to the left, and then to the right you had a room addition off the back, and then a covered patio below. And the existing storage has been there since 1941, but again, it was upgraded.
Just so I understand, so that was approved, HPC in the past said that's what you guys approved it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they've done is they've added the French doors on the, whatever elevation that is, I guess it would be the south elevation. And then they enclosed the east elevation of that downstairs rec room area.
Correct.
Added that downstairs. But the room addition upstairs, is that still okay?
Yeah, that was approved, and they did that according to what we had looked at 2 years ago. But if you look at the rear elevation, downstairs was supposed to be just concrete patios, and then the back wall that's existing there was supposed to remain. So what they've done is extensive additional work to the patio and the storeroom from, to create this.
And then, sorry. Wait, can you go back to the construction photo?
Yeah.
That's approved right there?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Ray, I'm trying to remember back that far, and as I recall, when they submitted the plans that we were reviewing, there were some rather flimsy-looking posts. Do you remember that, Commissioner Span? But I remember at the time thinking, well, that's kind of a waste of space. They might as well turn it into storage or something, and I think my thoughts came true. But I just as soon not see some flimsy posts there and useless dark.
Well,
patio.
you've brought up a good point, and that is that when the building plans finally came through across my desk, one set of them, I had to look at what was before me and what was approved, and building had looked at them, and because you had the substantial new addition of a room upstairs and the weight of that, plus the roof on top, two little corner posts weren't going to cut it, and so structurally they made them put in these, what are wall panels, have bracing and things inside there. So when something like that happens, where another department reviews the same plans that you had taken to a hearing, and they say, well, this will work if you add brackets here and more substantial structure to it, then we have to look at it and say, well, is it substantially conformant to what the HPC approved? And to that, we had to say yes because they still had these openings so that you could, you know, go out the sides and go in from the backyard to the patio. But it wasn't a post in the corner anymore. It was, you know, a small wall section that had the structure in it. So I approved it. But then things went way beyond that, obviously.
Commissioner Cowan here.
Mm-hmm.
If I wear two different hats, I can take two different attitudes towards this. If I wear my city planning hat and conformance with existing codes, I would say thumbs down. On the other hand, wearing my historic hat, I think that the way the place looks from the outside now more resembles the original look of the structure because it was all enclosed. To put this open area underneath, to me, doesn't look the same as the original house did, whereas the enclosed space does. So, I don't have an objection to it being enclosed with my historic eye. From my city planning eye, I see very bad infractions. So that's my only comment. I have no conclusion. I'm just saying I like the look of it. And I think it more conforms to the original look with it enclosed, but I see the problem of enforcement with these people.
Commissioner Ray saying that Commissioner Cowan hit the nail on the head, both heads wearing both hats. When push comes to shove, I would just be uncomfortable with those gaping holes there. So I'm torn as well. I don't know if we need to punish people by refusing them to do something.
Commissioner Span again. This is a legal non-conforming lot that he has stretched the rules so far that he's stepped over the line. None of this is going to be visible from the street, so irregardless of whether it's a gaping hole or not, it doesn't matter to me. All he's done is increase his income on this property by having 2 more units down there, up to $3,000 minimum. He's circumvented our zoning code, even though it was circumvented in the first place, and I think that he ought to have a monetary fine too. I can't see people that knowingly and premeditatedly do this. I think when he came to us in the first place, he had every intention of putting units downstairs. Otherwise, he wouldn't have plumbed it in that process. So I feel like he should be conforming to the original plan. And again, I think there ought to be some type of a fine to it.
Commissioner Purvis, the original plans that came here to the HPC were different than what was actually going to be approved by planning, right? Because the size of the structure, the load bearing weight, they had to expand and get rid of the posts, right?
The room additions above were the same size as what was presented here. It was just that structurally, once it went through engineering and building, they said, well, the posts can't bear the weight, and so you'll have to, beef it up. So that's what they did.
And they added bathrooms.
Down below, yeah, the patio was just a patio down below each unit. There were no bathrooms down there and no kitchens. So.
And there is now. So.
Commissioner Purvis, Adam Feinstein here. If I can just direct you to, unfortunately we don't have an exhibit on the PowerPoint, but there is a sheet in the staff report here on the agenda that shows the proposed elevations from from when they were doing this project as was approved. And you can see there it does have more of an open feel with the posts. So yeah, what you're getting at, I think, is that it was definitely a different project approved than what wound up being built for structural reasons. And from the staff perspective, there was the ability to make that determination that, you know, the goal and the intent, as we assumed it, as we knew it to be on paper a couple of years ago, was the same as what was approved. Technically, we know that that's definitely changed at this point because we've seen these things enclosed, and I do recall at the meeting a couple of years ago, there was discussion of concern for the same exact thing that's happened. But back to Commissioner Span's point, as far as what can and can't be done for punishment, so to say, it's with our code enforcement folks. I'm not aware of them being able to issue monetary fines unless the person, the property owner, continues to not comply. They say, all right, well, I'm still not going to tear that out. At that point, monetary fines can be applied. Based on whatever the outcome of today's meeting is, it will either be staff directing code enforcement to go back and say, all right, this has got to go, and give them a certain date for compliance, or they hypothetically would be able to continue through the building permit process. That said, the valuation limitations for our nonconformity ordinance state that you can only add so many square feet to a nonconforming use or nonconforming structure, and they have met that already, if not possibly exceeded that with the approval that we had a couple of years ago. So from this side of it, and in fact, prior to us coming to the meeting here, I thought, why are we even going if we're not going to be able to approve it from the planning division side of it for the valuation? But the property owner applicant was insistent that we bring it here, so we did that. But yeah, I think that it's going to be more hoops to jump through that are not going to be able to be jumped through.
Is it Commissioner, is it both downstairs or currently they have kitchens and bathrooms, right? It was turned into a living space.
Correct.
Yes.
They both like basically studio apartments. Studio units.
Okay.
Commissioner Ray, I don't see any kitchen. I just see a bathroom in the corner. Pardon? Oh, I did take it. Okay.
This plan shows what the proposal is, not what the
Yeah,
already built is.
yeah, again, they've presented plans for what they're proposing in order to remedy the code case. So if you look at these two rec room plans, here where my arrow is, there are kitchen facilities and the same thing on the other. So those are to be removed. And they can't have kitchens in there. I mean, that code enforcement's already told them that those have to come out.
I think, Commissioner Correll, I think at this point we're kind of just talking in circles about something that's dead. So I would just move to deny the request and send it back to planning.
Commissioner Span, I would second that.
Commissioner Ham, Marion Hamlin, did you want to comment?
No, I think Commissioner Span and Commissioner Crowell have already stated basically what I'm thinking. It's a dead issue. It's supposed to be a covered patio. Let's go back to the covered patio thing and return it as close as possible to that.
Okay. Go ahead and vote. Okay. Unanimously passed. Okay, next item is item 4, Historic Preservation Awards.
Okay, Paul Bingham here, Assistant Planner. We've asked again for some nominations for the Historic Preservation Awards that will be given out in May. This is an annual tradition, and we've had some great presentations and some great awards in the past. We've had several of the commissioners who have sent emails or called or given me things. And so the ones that have been nominated right now, there's 538 South Citrus Avenue. And then there was a nomination of the Bandy House, but no address. And my difficulty is I've researched or searched for that, and there's at least 2 structures that come up, quote unquote, Bandy House. So I don't know which one we want to have as the nominee. And then there's the Turrentine House, which is 208 East 5th. The what used to be the Escondido Airstrip, which is now J&W Lumber on West Washington. The North County Times building that's just right down the street here, which is now a charter school. And then Vice Chair Span also mentioned at the beginning of the meeting here, Second and Hickory, which is a mid-century dental building. So we're, right now in our discussion, we're just taking nominations and discussing them. So we haven't really decided on anything. These are the ones that have come forward now, and you may have more that you want to tell us about, but that's the reason for this item today, is let's narrow this down. Either in theme, last year's theme was agricultural heritage, and we had like the Bandy Blacksmith Shop and the Guild. We had Henry Avocado, and you know, there's people and places that were very important to our history for agricultural heritage. And so if you'd like to do a theme, we can do that, or if you just want to look at places that are well kept or they've done a good renovation, we could do that too.
Commissioner, or Chair Ray, Adam Feinstein here again. Just to kind of lay out what our goal is today, it is to get actual nominations that we can move forward with and create the awards presentation and work on that for the May, I think we're looking at May 22nd City Council meeting. Additionally, based on information I've received from one of the commissioners, if we can, when we comes time to select the actual nominees, that after our discussion, if we can choose and vote on them one individually, in case there's a need to recuse, for anyone to recuse themselves from any of the items, that would be great.
Commissioner Ray, I'm kind of excited. It jumps out at me. We have 3, what do you call it, repurposed buildings. The North County Times building at 254 East Valley Parkway, the Second and Hickory Dental, and the Airstrip J&W Lumber. So I'm pushing for those 3, and a nice opportunity to talk about converting historic buildings to another use.
So the thought then would be that these get an award for adaptive reuse?
Adaptive reuse, that was what I was thought.
Commissioner Carell, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we already award the North County Times building a few years ago for adaptive reuse? I know we discussed it, but I can't remember if we ever did.
I don't think we did.
Okay.
I know
Well-
J&W got an award, and it was not terribly long ago.
Commissioner Cowan, I emailed Paul Bingham and suggested that we consider the San Diego Adobe Heritage Association because of their work in promoting historic adobes, the understanding of them, techniques to restore them, and the fact that they have a historic Adobe tour every year, and all the proceeds goes to the History Center.
And Commissioner Cowan is correct. We have, in years past, recognized groups for whatever contribution they've made to historic preservation, and this is certainly one of them. And we've also looked at individuals. We had a young couple who bought a house and did an amazing historic survey of their own new house, and we gave them an award for that. I don't remember if you remember the couple, the Peets, which is a historic name in and of itself to Escondido, but they were delighted to think that anybody even read their report. So Yeah, the commission can go in a lot of directions here.
Well, maybe then we do go back to individual instead of a group. And I would agree that the Adobe group would be worthy. So I'll add that maybe instead of the airstrip. But I think the dental building could be appropriate in the North Carolina Times.
Commissioner Purvis, I'd like to see the buildings, they don't have to, I'd actually rather not see a theme. I don't know if that's something that's just set in stone or if that's adaptable.
No, some years we don't. It just depends. Yeah. You're not locked into that.
I like the airstrip building. I'm not sure. I mean, but if we won an award more recently, then I don't think it should necessarily win another because there's other good.
Do you recall what award we gave it? It was?
I remember I nominated it, but it could have been 8, 9 years ago. I love the reuse aspect of taking a historic building and getting a whole nother life out of it. And I wouldn't have a problem giving them another one if we were doing the theme. I don't like to follow a theme because it gives us a template that we have to fit into, and there are things that are really deserving of awards. I didn't bring up the Stewart House. I mean, that place has gone from the pits to top, just top, first class. So I mean, if we have houses and adaptive reuse at the same time, that's fine. I think we better figure out how many awards we want to give out, because now we have more possibilities than really. I don't want to start handing these out like
Andy?
the more reclusive they are, the more valuable they are to the owners.
And Commissioner Carell, I know you say you're not sure, but I have fair certainty that we've given the Costco Academy Award. I remember having a whole conversation about it. Cameron Curry, the director, calling me and talking to me about it. I'm pretty sure we did. I think they even posted it on Facebook.
And we should be able to find that, huh?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ray, could it have been the State of the City Award?
Yeah, it could have been a mayoral award.
I know we had a whole conversation about adaptive reuse 3 years ago.
Oh.
Had to be at least 4. I've been here 3 years.
Could be wrong, but I think.
Okay, let's do it this way. If we see that the North County building and the airstrip got awards for adaptive reuse already, if you tell us that, yeah, if they already got them, they come off the list. But if they got an award for something different and you want to give them an award for adaptive reuse, we could leave them on the list?
Commissioner Handel, I think that would work for me.
Commissioners, one thing that I think maybe we should establish first right now is, are we going to be looking at a theme or are we looking at individual properties? Because we seem to be hearing both ways, so I don't know if that discussion can be had and that determination made first.
Commissioner Ray, if the school and the airstrip and whatever the other one is.
Well, the mid-century dental building at
Yeah.
2nd and Hickory, no one recalls that they got an adaptive reuse.
Right, okay, so that's,
So that one would remain on the list?
right.
And I think that was actually built as a dental building. It does, in the area where it is. I don't know. I just was driving by and I thought, oh my gosh, this thing is just incredible.
You know, there's another tax office on either Calmia or, might be Calmia, it's green and it has, yeah, it was, I think it's wonderful, and I don't know if it's ever received an award. Probably second. No, third, yeah, and, I'm sorry, I don't know. But that could be another one hole in our pocket if we want to go for a theme of adaptive reuse. If, I would say if all of those go through one way or another, we could go with that. But if J&W Lumber and the North County Times have been on the awards, then we need to go with just an individual.
I'm pulling up, and we'll get this up in just a second on the video, but in fact, Kirsten, if you want to put it up, I want to try to locate whatever the property or properties are that we're discussing, so.
So we're looking for a green building on the corner of 3rd and what?
Maybe Calmia. I'm sorry, I walk my dog past it a lot, but I'm not always paying attention. Okay, it would be, keep going that way.
Straight.
Now straight, south,
Is this south?
yeah. Go another block. Is that it? No. No, that's, okay, then it might be the block to the east. No, darn it.
Nope.
That's not it. Be what, Kelly and 4th right there?
Well,
Commissioner
It's-
Crowley, I feel like we might be stretching a bit here on the theme, so I would say that we should just go to, even if it ends up 2 or 3 businesses adaptive reuse and 1 or 2 homes, I think we'll have an easier time finding people that are deserving of it, trying to stretch and find.
okay, now aren't we to Juniper?
anyway, I think
You know-
we'll stop searching around here and
The president of the Old Escondido Historic District just came in. Maybe she would know what I'm talking about since she walks the neighborhood. A green and brick terracotta tax lawyer's office was a house, now commercial, somewhere around Calmia and 2nd or
More on the corner of Broadway and 5th, maybe?
That's a long ways away.
so.
There's a tax attorney there on the corner. But, oh wait.
They're
you said
Broadway.
You said brick?
brick, no, not bricks, but brick, terracotta color and medium green and dark green. What about Broadway and, no, I'm not seeing it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Let's stop surfing the maps like
Yeah, okay.
we try to do sometimes. but,
Thank you for trying.
No worries.
Okay. Well,
Commissioner Breitenfeld, I would like to voice my opinion. I really like Commissioner Cohen's idea of recognizing an organization that's promoting a certain period of history in California and Escondido. I think they've done a good job, and they're somewhat new as far as the tours go.
And officially, what is the name of this San Diego Adobe group? Commissioner Cowell, we need your microphone moved over so we can hear you. There we
Thank you.
go. Thank you.
I voted on it and helped create it, and I can't remember what it is.
San Diego, it's San Diego, North County, Adobe Home. Something. Well, it's the tour.
Just give me another minute, please. I'll find it.
Oh, San Diego Adobe Heritage Association.
That's it.
Okay.
Did you say North County? San Diego, North County, Adobe Home? Is that what you said?
There-
Commissioner Cowan again, it's coming up here now. It's San Diego Adobe Heritage Association, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
So is this one of the awards, or is this the award? Because I feel like we should be giving out something to some individual that actually has done something in the city, preferably the historic district, but it doesn't have to be. I think that house out on Citrus is an incredible example of what somebody spent a fortune redoing.
Commissioners, my recommendation would be if we are going to look at going with a group such as the San Diego Adobe Heritage Association, that any individual award should probably be to an Adobe property.
Commissioner Ray, we just did the Adobe Awards a little bit ago. What if we do a group, a house, and a business, something like that?
Yeah, we'd really like to limit it to just 3 of the top ones, so.
Okay. And by business, I mean adaptive reuse, of course.
I think that's a great idea. 3 is a nice number, and years ago I thought we were going to be try to get in one commercial or adaptive reuse, whatever you want to call it, along with the individual awards. But I think that really covers the spectrum of what you can do with a historic structure.
Commissioner Hanlon, I agree with Commissioner Span. And I think the 538 South Citrus House would be a candidate for the individual.
Okay. Any other, what about the, any other house nominations or adaptive reuse?
For adaptive reuse, this is Commissioner Brightfield. For adaptive reuse, what about the facility, the waste management facility that incorporated an old packing house, fruit packing house, into its business model and design? It's on mission?
Is that the Escondido disposal, EDI?
Yes.
I was unaware that they had done that.
Yes, they did. They kept the building and incorporated it into the rest of their facility.
Commissioner Ray, and you can't get any greener than that.
We've actually got a very good working relationship with Escondido Disposal, so that one would be probably pretty easy for us to get some information on. Hopefully, depending on how their records and everything are as well.
Okay.
Would that one come to the HPC? The review?
How long ago was that done, or do you know?
That would have been back in 2015, probably. It was not my case then, so I really can't give you any more color on it.
Are we talking about the Titleist building?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Purvis, the property that Commissioner Brightfield just brought up, the EDI.
EDI, right, and Commissioner.
Yeah, there was a Titleist building there.
Right, and that actually, I remember when it came to the Planning Commission, as far as, and the only comment I made was that it's really good to see that they're going to reuse the Titleist building and work.
Well, isn't that where their offices are currently on Mission?
Now, yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, they did an incredible addition, and they were able to utilize that. And honestly, if they hadn't been able to utilize it, it probably would have come down, but they were able to, and it looks really good. They honed the floors and pulled up all the old tile inside, and not to mention the fact that they're a zero energy user, and they're a big feather in the city's cap with the climate action plan.
This is Commissioner Brightfield. The building I'm talking about that they reused is actually a Quonset hut-shaped building, which was like some of the packing houses used to be along that area. I think it's the only one left. It sits behind the Titleist building.
Okay, it looks like we may have 2, and so the individual house, it looks like it could be the Citrus Avenue. The Lazler house.
What would that go for architecture?
Preservation, thank you, yeah. Do we have any others? Should we, move that?
Well, I think we wanted to do a vote on each one of them individually. so that if somebody needed to recuse themselves, or, we can take them on their own merit.
Okay.
So might I recommend that we have a motion and a vote on the South Citrus property?
Okay. I'll move that we nominate 538 South Citrus, the Larzalier House. All those in favor?
Wait, we need a second.
Commissioner Correll, second.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so looking at the award, okay, let's just do a manual vote. Can I have the motion again?
Nominating the house at 538 South Citrus Avenue, the Larzalier House.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Correll, second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
All right, everybody,
Unanimous?
thank you.
Okay. All right, then the San Diego Adobe Heritage Association. That's not the proper name, and I apologize, but all those in favor? Oh, I need a
We
second.
need a motion. Commissioner Correll, second.
And all those in favor?
Thank you.
And unanimous?
Real quick, Commissioner Purvis, so we can vote on all of them if we want to? Or do we have to pick 3? Oh, okay, great.
Each of them.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. And the third one being the EDI group, the Escondido Disposal Buildings Titleist and Quonset Hut. Or perhaps that we're nominating the business that adapted them.
Commissioner
Okay.
Correll, second.
All those in favor? Okay. Done.
What about the dental building on Second and Hickory?
Maybe next year.
If we just do 3 this year, we'll keep it in mind for next year. And this is something to remember next year, that we had other good nominations this year that we didn't use. Because next year will be, Veronica would come up with nominations, but maybe even put it in the record as far as the nominations that we had that we didn't go with.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm totally lost in what we just did, but okay. I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I guess we can go on to the item 5, the Certified Local Government Annual Report.
Staff is, because we're a CLG in Escondido, we have to submit a report every year on our activities, our training, goals, things like that. And so you've been given a draft of the latest report. This one actually, because they have an odd year breakdown, it's the end of 2017, from October 1st, 2017 until September 30th of 2018. So it's a little difficult to try and wrap your head around it sometimes, but that's the window that we look at. And so hopefully you've been able to look at this draft, and there's all sorts of things included here, including how many times we had this meeting, and what the attendance of each commissioner was, and which commissioners left during that period, and which ones came on during that period, and your training. So we present this to you because this is staff's best effort at putting the report together, but we may have missed something. We may have mischaracterized something. We may have left something out that you can tell us what to fix before we actually send it to Sacramento.
Commissioner Correll, I know I did ethics training in this period.
Okay?
Because I've turned it into the city clerk.
Okay. So that was during the reporting period, you're confident. Okay? Great. And let's see what. Need to get to the training page here. Yeah, page 8.
Commissioner Cowan here. On page 5, I'd like to point out that literally and figuratively my name is an error.
I'm sorry, what?
On page 5, I'd like to point out that my name is literally and figuratively in error.
Staff apologizes for that. It must have been autocorrect on our computers.
Commissioner Purvis, on the same page, I do not have an H in my name.
And I know that. And I typed this, so yeah, it might have been spelled correct. Who knows? Anybody else that I butchered their name? Please tell me. All right. Now, did you see it anywhere else but page 5, or is that the extent of my typos? Looks like we got it right on page 7. Commissioner Purvis and Cowan as well. All right. Attendance. We try to keep attendance, but if you remember a particular meeting and we don't have you down, please let us know. Or any other training.
Commissioner Ray, if you want to get nitpicky, on page 10, the annual Mother's Day home tour, we never honored only one mother. You have it singularly possessive. There should be no apostrophe.
Okay. Did we get the date right?
Yes.
Yep,
Oh,
sure is. Wow.
wow, good.
So I think at some point we're going to look as staff for a vote to accept this so that we can send it on to Sacramento.
Okay.
Obviously with the corrections that you found.
Okay. I'll move that we accept the report as submitted.
I second the motion.
You're
Now we can go ahead and vote.
I'm not seeing it on the screen.
Get it that on. The on button.
passed unanimously.
Okay.
Okay, item number 6, downtown projects and downtown specific plan amendment.
So just to find out, can you see the PowerPoint? That's
Not
all right.
No,
So we'll
no.
get that going. Let me know when you got it.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Projector literally says on, but it's not. I apologize.
Well, at least we've got it where both the commissioners and staff here can see it. I do apologize for anyone in the audience that it's not available on the monitor here. But we do have a couple of extra hard copies of the report of the commission's agenda here that has the images in there. So if anyone would like them, if you want to grab one here, we've got it. All right, so Adam Feinstone here, Principal Planner. I've also got with me Peggy Chapin. She is a contract planner working for the city on a couple of the major projects going on downtown, which we will be discussing. There are currently 3 significant development projects in the works downtown. There we go, we got it up there. And in addition to that, those 3 are in the historic downtown district of the downtown specific plan. In addition to that, we are also working on a density transfer program that would allow transfer of density from one property to another within the downtown specific plan. We'll get into a little bit of detail on both that program and each of the individual projects. Briefly go through those and talk about them, and then we'll be able to answer any questions that the commission may have at the end of the presentation here. It should be noted as well that we are providing this information as a discussion item. There's no formal authority with the HBC over these items because the downtown specific plan is not a formal historic district in the way that the old Escondido neighborhood is. Instead, it's a district within the downtown specific plan in the same way that the Gateway Transit District or Parkview District or others are. So, but we did feel that we'd want to bring this to you guys and show you what's going on in the downtown area and the projects. This map here shows not just the projects that we're going to be discussing, but everything else kind of in the works that are somewhat significant and substantial projects going on in the downtown area. The Palomar Heights project on the right side here, that's the old hospital site. The Ivy and Aspire, those are the three that we're going to be talking about tonight or this afternoon. The other projects going on downtown, there's a project that's been proposed for senior housing on Quince and West Valley Parkway that's across Quince from the transit station. There's a couple other smaller projects on one on West Grand, West Grand and Quince. That's I believe 33 residential units currently as proposed over a little bit of office space. There's another one on Pine and Second, is that Paul? That's 5 residential units over a little bit of office space, or commercial space, I should say. And then there's a couple of projects that are actually under construction at this point, up at the north end of this graphic on Center City Parkway, north of Washington. That's the Latitude 2 site. I do not recall, I think they call it Alcove is their marketing name for it now, but we all know it as Latitude 2, the second one across the street from Latitude 1. The other one that's in the works and under construction right now is the Gateway Grand, which I believe they're marketing it as West Grand now, so it's not...
Where the old police station was.
Correct, across the street from the transit center again, where the old police station was. So that project is 126 units. The Latitude project is about 100 units, give or take. I don't recall off the top of my head. And then the rest of the projects I've kind of given that info on. 145 for the senior, 33 or so on the West Grand and Quince, and then 5 on the Pine and Second in the Cotto area. So moving on, we've got the 3 projects that we wanted to give you a little bit of more detailed info on. The first is the Ivy. It is on the corner of East 2nd and South Ivy Street. The proposal is to put up a 1-acre project, or a project on the 1-acre site, the 127 dwelling units, which is going to take advantage of the density transfer program that will be discussed shortly. Property would be about 63 feet in height on an average. It's got the topography of it, however, shows that the height, looking at it from the back side there, especially at the corner here, is going to be fairly tall. I believe it's 75, if I'm looking at it correctly, from that point, from that ground level there. Property is currently vacant. It was the previous site of the North County Surgery Center, I believe it was called. One part of the project also is going to be to create this as a one-way drive, so it's going to be one-way only here. Parking initially, or existing proposed, I should say, in front of this building here on Ivy. So this is the floor plan. There's going to be a little retail on the bottom floor there, some recreational amenities for on-site on the podium deck. So it's basically a podium deck above 2 levels of parking. There's additional open space, passive open space area here, little other open space within, or recreational space, I should say, within. Architecturally, here's an exhibit showing it from the corner there of 2nd and Ivy, and then this one I just showed you from the basically catty corner that's third along the alley there. So Just- we'll come back to any of these if anyone has any questions when we're done with all the discussion here. You'll see also just so we kind of have reference in the background there, we'll be talking about the site in a few minutes where the hospital is there. So, second project that we wanted to go over briefly is what's called the Aspire project. It's in parking lot 1, so basically right across the street from City Hall here on West Valley and Maple Street Plaza. Proposal there is, I believe, 131 dwelling units on the site. It's a little over an acre. It would be the same situation where they would be looking at taking advantage of the density bonus or the density transfer program. In addition, and the Ivy one was like this as well. Both of them are also looking at providing affordable housing units and going with the density bonus on that. I believe 11 of the units in this project, and I think 11 in the other one as well. 11 in the other one as well would be affordable housing units. This is just a floor plan, or a site plan, I should say. We have different levels of plans and different configurations for each project, so I'm bringing you what we got that's readily available here. They're going to have parking on the ground floor. They're going to have one level of subterranean parking. The existing parking lot will be removed, obviously, and I believe 78 of the spaces will be replaced with public parking spaces. Let's see, 76, I'm sorry. It's going to represent a net loss of public parking on the site of 42 spaces. So there will be a reduction in public parking in the area there. Here's some elevations for it. Architecturally, this is facing West Valley Parkway. This talks about right facing City Hall here. Shows the colors and materials. And then a couple of other renderings of the property. This is looking at it from Maple Street Plaza. This is kind of at that corner, Valley and Maple. This is from the other side on Valley, looking down basically, looking at from this side down to the west. And then this is the podium deck on the rear with the pool and open space there, recreational amenities. So the last one we wanted to just touch on, and then we can open, or then we'll have some discussion on the density transfer situation. But the last project here is the old hospital site. It's a very new submittal, or it's not completely developed yet. We've gone through a couple of rounds of back and forth in discussions with the applicant, but nothing formal other than an initial submittal, which was lacking a little bit of information. So we're trying to get something more concrete. But they're looking at doing a multifamily project with a little bit of commercial space. They don't want to overdo the commercial, and because there's already not enough, but there's already quite a bit of commercial in the downtown area on Grand and some vacant storefronts there. And I believe that they've had discussions with the DBA, the Downtown Business Association, that they don't necessarily want to see a lot of new competition for vacant storefronts that are existing. The other aspect is, I think that most developers are looking to build multifamily these days, and not necessarily commercial and mixed-use projects. So that's what they're really trying to get to. They're currently proposing here would be 77 units market rate senior housing project, 220 or so residential units in apartment flats, in townhomes and flats here, and then approximately 200 units in various configurations of townhomes and villas. So these would be the type of thing where you'd have either a 1-car or 2-car garage with your unit above it, and townhome ownership on that kind of thing. So they're still developing the concept in more detail. One of the ideas, or one of the things they've been working on, is going one way on Valley Boulevard, so changing that from a 2-way street to 1-way, just going northbound, and providing angled parking. Not sure if it's going to be on the west side or east side here. That's still kind of being worked out, but that's where that's what their current discussions with us are, their current proposal, and we're still working through details. So I don't have a lot more on this No, we have some very conceptual elevations that are available on our website, but it's really too much in flux that I didn't want to put those in front of you guys at this point. But that's that third project then. And finally, the other discussion item that we wanted to bring up is the density transfer program. Basically, what that is going to allow is for the use of excess and unused density on one development project or development site to be transferred and used on a different site. You'd have let's see, I'm sorry, I don't have the information here. You'd have a number of units, but the idea is to try to get our build out of our downtown area as close as we can to the projected numbers of units that we're trying to attain. It's very difficult when you're tied into only building on certain sites, what is allowed on those sites, and when you want some flexibility and you want to be able to put additional units in, a developer is willing to do that on a site that makes sense through a planned development permit. It may be appropriate to use additional density that would have been sacrificed elsewhere. So for the Ivy, Aspire, and the density transfer program, Peggy Chapin has been working on those in a lot of detail. I myself have been working on the Palomar Heights project, as they're calling the old hospital site. So we wanted to put that all in front of everyone and open this up and have a discussion as far as any thoughts and concerns and just some discussion on what your thoughts and ideas are.
Commissioner Stan?
Am I right in assuming that we are mandated by Sacramento to allow density bonus with market value or affordable housing, if we can call it that? My concern is if we're going to, and I know that density transfer has been a tool that planners have used forever. I was never necessarily in favor of it. Times change, and I understand to meet the build out of the general plan, we're going to have to modify our thinking a little bit downtown. My concern is if a builder was to come in and get the density transfer, which is going to up of what he can build, can he then come back to us and say, I also want an increase because I'm putting in affordable housing? I don't want the ultimate number to exceed what it would be with the density transfer. Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I see what you're saying on that, and I will say that both the Ivy and Aspire projects are looking at doing both of those things. They're both proposing a density bonus, which is the affordable housing, and a density transfer where they would be taking additional density from other properties elsewhere in downtown that are not going to be developed to that potential.
I guess it's what comes first. I mean, if the bonus comes first because of the low income housing, and then they get the density transfer, versus if they get the density transfer, which says that they can build a certain number of houses, and then all of a sudden they get a bonus on top of that, which puts it way above.
So you're saying it's kind of like which math do you do first? Do you add the transfer, which would get, let's say, from 20 to 30, and then you bonus 30, or do you bonus 20 and then add the transfer on top
Right.
of that, right? Okay.
I would like, since we're already giving them a big break, I want to see the lower number of these because that's still much higher than we're used to seeing downtown.
They're doing both. They're asking for the increase in density as well as asking for a 30% density bonus by providing 11% of their units for very low income housing.
Commissioner Cowan with a number of questions, if I might. The first one is with respect to the old hospital site. Has there been an environmental impact report on that, or does there need to be?
There will be. That has not been done yet. We are in the very preliminary stages. We're actually looking at, once we have a better project scope from them, we're going to be sending out an NOP, a notice of preparation, for an environmental document that will go to various stakeholders and residents nearby, and we can send it to all the commissioners if they'd like to receive that as well. We'll be holding a scoping meeting at some point in the 30-day period between between when the notice of preparation is put out and when any input is due by. Once we've got all that, at that point, we would get the environmental impact report started and then do the whole process and bring that forward to the Planning Commission and City Council at the time when it's ready to go for approval.
If I may, I'll continue with a couple of other questions. With regard to the density transfer program, would there be an environmental impact report required for that?
Yes, I should introduce myself. I'm sorry, Katie Chapin, contract planner. Yes, there's already been an addendum to the general plan and the downtown specific plan, ER, that was done several years ago when we adopted the general plan and the downtown specific plan. There's an addendum that has been prepared by a consultant, Harris Associates. The project will be going forward to the Planning Commission on March 26th. And the staff report and the addendum are being prepared for release today. We can get a copy prepared. Need a copy, like a copy, I can email one to you.
Thank you. The next question is, there seems to be quite a change in the traffic flows and traffic impacts of this, which I assume is covered in the EIR, but I don't know that for a fact. With regard to that and the other aspects of these developments, has there been any attention given to a developer exactions
Sure.
to mitigate some of the conditions?
Yes, with any development project, developers are required to pay development impact fees in order to offset whatever the impacts of additional residential units or densities or square footage would be putting onto the city. So they will be providing traffic impact fees and public infrastructure, public park fees, sewer, utilities, water, etc. So they are required to pay per unit a certain amount of money to each of those funds to implement.
Is there, next question, is there any concern or, I know probably legally there may not be a need for concern, but do we know about the composition of all these units that are being added? How much might be rental, how much might be ownership, and how much might be transient?
By transient, I'm assuming you mean people who are living there and renting places for 6 months and leaving, but we can
No,
leave it at that.
I'm sorry, what I meant was, are there any nightly or weekly, like a
Hotel.
single room occupancy or a hotel or an apartment hotel?
Right. So for all the projects, I believe they are all putting a condo map on them, which would allow a developer to sell the units in the future. But for the most part, other than the units that you see at the Palomar Heights project back here that are the kind of more traditional townhome type projects, everything else is going to remain rental units for the time being. These units back here, I believe, are intended to be sold as townhomes.
Excuse me, I'd like to add a correction to that, because both the Ivy and the Aspire projects initially were going to go forward as condo maps, but since they've added the very low income affordable units to it, they can't sell those units and they have to remain for at least a minimum like 30 years as rental. So the whole project will be rental units.
Thank you.
Both projects.
I'm sorry, I lost my place here. I have two more questions. Comments. One of the things that concerns me with all this monumental, and I mean monumental, development going on, there doesn't seem to be a consistent theme to the architecture. And I think that consideration should be given to that. You know, I'm thinking about how downtown Santa Barbara redeveloped with the kind of Spanish colonial, or whatever that is, theme. Maybe it's revival. It seems to me that if we could try and get some consistency in theme, that it might help the presentation of the downtown once it gets all developed. And my last comment is, I look at this through two lenses, as I did the previously here. The one lens is from an urban development standpoint, this is probably pretty good, as long as the fiscal impact works. Was the fiscal impact of these things considered? Or?
Yeah, all of the development has to make sense and be able to offset whatever the impacts are. So police service and other utilities and everything, they all got the impact fees that I was mentioning earlier, they are required and they would cover whatever the services are necessary. So it's intended definitely to be a net plus. However, I will say that the site where Aspire is going, it is a city parking lot, so there is a purchase and sale agreement for that.
Yeah. Well, my last comment is, I think one of the features of Southern California that is historic and relatively charming is the relative low density and low rise nature of it. So from the historic standpoint, I hate to lose what I call the charm of that. From the urban development standpoint and from the housing needs standpoint, the other part of it is that there's a need for this. But my concern is that a lot of what we have here in San Diego County is going by the borders in its low density charm. But I'm well aware of the sprawl issue and the housing issue and everything else.
Commissioner Ray, first a statement. While the downtown might not be an officially designated historic district, it contains a significant collection of historic buildings, probably a denser collection of historic buildings than in our one and only historic district. And for the Historic Preservation Commission to not have an opportunity to weigh in on this officially and make recommendations to council, I think is a horrible shame. That said, my comments would in questions, the downtown specific plan limits the height on that block, I believe, to 350 feet or 4 stories for the Aspire project. And that is my main concern for what it will do to destroy our charming downtown. And it's also, the density is greater than 75 units per acre, which is specified for that block. And so now, all of a sudden, we're changing the downtown specific plan to accommodate this building, basically. I didn't hear that the density being changed before this project came along. So now a developer comes along, wants to make it denser, so we're saying, okay, we're going to change that. Are we also going to change the height requirement so that they can build that? I haven't heard that discussed yet.
The density, the state of California, Peggy Chapin, contract planner, the density bonus law of the state of California allows a developer to request waivers from a local agency should they provide very low income housing, which is what they're doing. So as part of their application, they're requesting a waiver of the height from 60 to 65 feet, I think, look, and the increased density, and that's part of that waiver for this fire project. The Ivy project also asking for a waiver of the height requirement, the number of units, and a setback on Second from 14 to 12 feet.
So if our city wanted to preserve the charm of our downtown, they could deny those waivers?
Yes.
Okay.
If I can clarify, the waivers are not what we could deny. We could approve or deny the project.
Okay.
The density bonus law allows a developer to request concessions, basically waivers, reductions in setbacks, reductions in parking requirements, increased height, increased or reductions in landscaping, open space requirements, things like that, depending on the number of affordable, percentage of affordable units at whatever level of affordability, it gets you a certain number of concessions that you can request. So we could not say we won't approve a project because you have requested to exceed the height. But we could say, the city could say, we won't approve a project because it doesn't make sense, it's not appropriate, we can't make the findings to approve a conditional or a plan development permit, something of that sort.
Okay, as long as that's a possibility. And I am concerned about the height of Aspire, the way it will loom over our downtown. At 6 stories, it'll be three times and more taller than any of our downtown buildings, and it will be twice as tall as City Hall, dwarfing our magnificent grand City Hall. All of the pictures I've seen, well, there is one picture where I noticed that City Hall is included, and it is not.
These are the ones I have.
Oh, okay. The upper right view from Maple Street Plaza looking east. If you look over past those 3 palm trees on the left, no, yeah, there. That little row of buildings, that's City Hall, I believe. Okay, that puts it in perspective. And in line with my concern, because these renderings are all from a specific angle, so you don't really catch on, is it possible that we can request or require that the developer make a 3-dimensional model, not computer, 3-dimensional, so that the community can come out and see what it's going to do to our downtown? I'm not against residential downtown. I love the idea. I think there should be, above Damon's and Draper's and some of the other buildings where the second floors aren't in use for whatever reason. But this doesn't belong in the middle of our downtown. To say nothing of the architectural design, which doesn't relate in any way whatsoever with our downtown. Alcove has more than the new apartments on Escondido or Center City Parkway. Those have a more classic design. This one is, going to be just, it doesn't have the classic appeal of our City Hall. So I'm frustrated by the look and the way it's in the middle of the city. We're compensating for parking. I do have a question if there's underground parking for the public. At a recent meeting, the developer said that the city would be in charge of enforcing parking, underground parking. I'm not aware the city is authorized to tow or ticket on private property unless it's a fire lane situation. So I'm wondering how the city will be enforcing and making sure that tenants and their visitors aren't occupying those spaces.
Thank you. Yes, it is subterranean parking. The lower level is parking for the residents, and the next level, which is street level, will be parking for public. And we've asked them to provide us with a parking management plan, how they're going to manage that and restrict it, making sure this time lapses, that no, the city would not go in there. That would not be something that we would go in and monitor that.
Okay, so in spite of what the developer said at a recent meeting, there is no subterranean parking for the public?
There is, it's garage parking, but it's at the same level. You just drive straight in and you go down for the subterranean parking for the residential.
It's under the building, it's just
right.
Right, exactly. And there's some additional parking for the public on the back side by the alleyway as well.
Okay, so so there are 2 places for public parking on the alley. Okay,
And then on the first level,
okay.
in the garage.
Oh, in the garage, okay, which is private property.
ADA parking, accessible parking on the first level as well as the rest of it's all public parking.
Okay, so I go back to how will that be enforced that it is not for residents or their visitors?
The city will have to follow up with their management company if it's not being enforced.
Okay. Okay, okay.
Commissioner Carell, my understanding based on the way you presented this is we have no bearing over these projects, right? So you're just presenting to us to keep us in the know, but regardless of how we feel about it, it's going forward.
Well, I won't say it's going to go forward as in it's going to be approved, but the projects are going to be brought forth to Planning Commission, City Council as necessary.
Well, Commissioner Ray, I just appreciate that we have an opportunity to ask some of these questions and to state some thoughts. We are obligated by the Historic Preservation Ordinance to safeguard the city's historic heritage as embodied and reflected in its historical, cultural resources, sites, and historic districts. And I really obviously strongly feel that we aren't being allowed to provide official input in this situation. And I know I'm not alone. At a recent meeting with Old Escondido Historic District, the neighbors are not happy there. So there are going to be a lot of unhappy people to deal with if this becomes a reality.
One thing I know that obviously as we've discussed, this is for informational purposes, but I am not positive who gets what types of public notices from the city. But I do want to make you guys aware, in case you don't receive them, we've set up something on our website for an email blast that will give anyone who signs up emails for public notices for any planning commission, zoning administrator, city council, public hearing items. So if you haven't yet done so, on our planning division homepage, there's something that says new or something like that, and public notification mailing list or something of that sort. So please do that. You can definitely be kept informed in case something else happens and you don't receive emails or correspondence from staff. You can at least be informed in that manner as well. So,
Peggy Chapin may also add that if you'd like to have a specific notice, I can notify you. We're keeping a list of those interested parties that want to be notified of either or both the Aspire and the Ivy projects. If you'd like me to do that, I can do that for you.
Commissioner Purvis, I heard what you said earlier, Mr. Feinstone, about the downtown historic district not being an official district. I'd like to iterate that because it went through a voting process with city council and it's been surveyed, there's contributing and supposedly non-contributing resources, there's boundaries. I perceive that as an official district, and even though it is atypical and there's not an ordinance that specifies that that area is a district, we have a document, which is the downtown specific plan, that was approved and adopted by City Council. So that being said, I understand that in that particular document, there's also, which I think in your staff report you mentioned, there's a provision that the HPC doesn't review primary structures that are going in, and if staff wants to do the preservation review to see if these buildings are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties because you're within a district, then I understand why maybe you wouldn't bring it to the HPC, but it doesn't appear, based on all the documents that we've received, that these are even going through review consideration for consistency with the standards, because the district, it's actually a resource in itself, and these buildings and the proposed projects ought to be examined under those guidelines, and it doesn't seem that they are. Moving forward to the density transfer program, what I'm not seeing is the disadvantages. I'm not seeing that written anywhere, and I know that I actually put out an email for that Old Escondido meeting, and I don't know who got it. It was actually sent to Old Escondido information. I know I sent it directly to staff as well, and a number of people did receive it at that particular organization. But I still have not ever gotten any information about disadvantages of the density transfer program. I know of some disadvantages. I think I agree with Chairman Span, or I'm sorry, Vice Chair Span, that there's kind of like that double dipping. I'm a little opposed to that because it does increase the density significantly. And it goes from the 4 stories that are permitted in the specific plan up to, or the general plan up to, what, I think 6 stories now? Aspire, 6 stories, I'm not sure about the height. So I guess the question I have is, staff reviewed these for consistency, the Secretary of Interior standards, the treatment of historic properties, the designs particularly, and what do we need to do to get this historic district acknowledged through an ordinance if it's going to be problematic in the future?
So if the latter question first, it would require that staff would review and bring an ordinance at the direction of City Council for their consideration. At this point, I'm not aware that they have made that request of us, so it would be something that they would have to give us some direction on. As far as review under the Secretary of Interior standards, I have not been involved in these projects, so I don't know what level of architectural review has been done to that effect. I'm not aware at this point.
Any other comments or questions? Well,
Commissioner Cowan, I fully agree with Chair Reyes' comments about this and Commissioner Purvis's comments about this.
Commissioner Purvis, comment, I guess just because it's just starting the Palomar Heights project, I would like to hopefully see a cultural landscape assessment tied to the EIR to see if there's any significant heritage trees in the area, nodes, different pathways that the hospital would have created. I know it was acknowledged in the early 2000 survey as a potential historic resource.
Noted.
okay. Any oral communication? Apparently not. Commissioner comments? I'll say that the Adobe home tour is this Sunday, 11 to 4. The houses this time will be in the Palma Valley. Houses and a mission and a church. The 3 houses will be within the grounds of the Palma Valley Country Club. And it should be a pretty special opportunity to see a nice variety of homes. Other than that, I just hope, I would like to see a little more respect for the Historic Preservation Commission. Anything else, anyone? Okay, then with that, adjourn until May 16th.